Words and stories may suffice to make many heroes in comics immortal to us, but their power sets can also literally make them immortal in canon as well. Number 10, Orion. Orion is one of the new gods and also the son of Darkseid. But just because his dad is one of the greatest villains of all time when it comes to the DC universe, doesn't mean that he can't be a hero, which is ultimately what Orion is, preferring to fight on the side of good. However, even being a hero, that doesn't mean that he never has conflicts with other superheroes in the DC universe, because that does also happen from time to time, with Orion arguing that his approach to heroism in certain cases is superior. Orion is an amazingly skilled fighter who is known for his super strength, durability, and stamina. He also is immortal like his father, and because Darkseid has also been established as a constant in the DC universe, therefore invulnerable from ever being permanently defeated and erased, we can discern that Orion likely has a similar thing going on, being at least somewhat inevitable, kind of by proxy. It's not confirmed, it's a theory, but just go with it. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us you love us by clicking that like. Number 9, Green Lantern. In the Kingdom Come universe of Earth 22, Green Lantern, Alan Scott, actually found a way to integrate his own lantern into his armor, making him even more powerful than before. In the world of Kingdom Come, he looks like a massive green knight. Although he looks terrifying, he's meant to be one of the good guys, and after waiting years for an alien threat that never appears, he joins the Justice League. Alan Scott in this universe also possesses the ability of immortality, among others, although as intimidating as this immortal and immensely powerful version of the hero is, I'd also like to remind you that he still has his weakness to wood in this universe. In fact, if the constructs he creates come into contact with wood, they apparently just are destroyed. Number 8, the Spectre. The Spectre is an often ominous presence who holds so much power that he usually stays on the periphery, not really getting involved in major plot points unless there is a crisis that's so large that it demands he interfere. He is a bringer of justice, and even to this day, there are tons of comics featuring the Spectre where his identity has never been revealed. The Spectre has also been posed as a sort of mantle that can be passed on, almost like a constant role that must always be filled. So sometimes we do know who he is, making the title itself alone immortal in a fashion. Number 7, Shazam. While Billy Batson can and does age in the comics, Shazam does not. Shazam is the superhero form that Billy transforms into whenever he speaks the magical word Shazam. In this form, he gains the powers of the gods, the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the endurance of Atlas, the power of Zeus, the bravery of Achilles, and finally, the speed of Mercury. Being that in this state, Billy is basically a god himself, it would make sense that this form of him is also immortal. Number 6, Phantom Stranger. The Phantom Stranger has a very mysterious background. No one really knows his exact origins, though he is often presented as a neutral party who was caught between the two sides in the war between heaven and hell, and as such was forced to roam the earth alone for all of eternity. He usually only makes an appearance when he is really, really needed, and is considered to be on the same power level as someone like the Spectre, who is known as an immensely powerful hero and cosmic entity. In terms of his psychic abilities, he has an omnipotent level of knowledge, can fly and teleport, and can sense threats that are often considered undetectable, as well as create illusions. And of course, the Phantom Stranger is also believed to be immortal, having roamed the universe for a millennium. At least that is true as far as the New Earth continuity version of the character goes. The New 52 version of the Phantom Stranger is not as mysterious or seemingly as powerful as his former self, sadly, but is still most likely immortal, considering how old he too is believed to be, based on the fact that we are actually given an identity for him. So he's supposed to be, I think, Judas. So I don't know if that's spoilers, but I'm pretty sure that was revealed like years ago. So I don't think it's super spoilery. Number 5, Supergirl. Like her cousin Kal-El, Supergirl is often perceived as being basically immortal. In Future State, we saw an alternate future where Kara left Earth and lived well into the future. And that's not the only alternate reality where we've seen Kryptonians living well into the future, virtually untouched by age. There have been countless other realities, including that of DC 1 million, where we've seen heroes like Superman live well beyond normal years, becoming basically a sun-powered god. So if this is true for Clark, based on his physiology, you'd think it would also be a possibility for Kara as well, considering that both of them have about the same Kryptonian physiology. I mean, Superman is male and Supergirl is female, and that's about where their differences should end though, I imagine. Also, if they're like humans, I mean, females tend to live longer than males, so she might even be more immortal. Number 4, Dream. The Dream we know via the Netflix Sandman series and the comic it is based off of is known by the name of Morpheus, but he is not the only iteration of the character to exist. Currently, in the Sandman universe, there is another who is Dream. This is a different incarnation of the character though. While Dream can be killed and defeated, the concept of Dream cannot. And so if ever Dream does fall, there will be a new incarnation that will appear to take his place. That's honestly true immortality. The reason why I'm ranking Dream a little lower though is because he's not your typical hero. In fact, some may not even consider him to be one at all and may in the comments already be arguing with me about this point. But I would argue that in his way, along his journey in the comics, Dream does ultimately become a hero. A reluctant one, but he does. Lord Morpheus is often not thought of as being one of the most powerful members of the Endless, as he is the ruler of the non-tangible realm of dreams and nightmares. But that being said, his brother Destruction did once imply that the two sides of the coin that make up Dream are both the concepts of the surreal fantasy worlds of dreams and reality itself. Like how destruction represents both destruction and creation, and death embodies both death and life, as one cannot exist without the other to help shape and define it. Number 3, Superman. One of the most powerful heroes out there is Superman, who has been established as immortal as long as he's under a yellow sun. So his immortality is a little bit conditional, which is why I'm ranking him a touch lower here. But when it comes to him being a powerhouse, Superman is undisputably one of the best heroes that we have. I mean, DC kind of had to cement his powers and give him weaknesses to make his struggles more grounded. That's how unstoppable he was initially. We had to give him weaknesses. He didn't have enough. Back when his superpowers were basically whatever he needed them to be in order to save the day and overcome the challenges that he faced. It was like, what does Superman need for this adventure? He's got that power. Number 2, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is a superhero that, yes, can be killed, but she has also been known as a demigod in the comics before, with one origin for the character establishing her as the daughter of Hippolyta, the queen of the Amazons, and Zeus, a god of Olympus. This feels pretty sacrilegious to me given the histories of the Amazons as explained in DC Black Label's Historia, but I digress. During the events of Dark Knight's death metal, Diana was also raised up to become an omnipotent god amidst the stars, transcending into an otherworldly being and leaving our earthly plane behind, at least for a little while. Diana would also, during this time, get a glimpse into a potential future that we'd come to know as Future State, although ultimately this future would not come to pass, at least not exactly. Wonder Woman is known for being one of the fiercest and strongest fighters amongst the Amazons and in the world of DC, and part of that is thanks to her connection to the gods and her immortality as a result. Wonder Woman is known for being one of the fiercest and strongest fighters amongst the Amazons and in the world of DC, and part of that is thanks to her connection to the gods and her immortality as a result. Number 1, Immortal Man. I mean, it's literally in the name, right? We have to include Klarn here. Honestly, I started out this list really having to rack my brain for some immortal heroes that I wanted to include. But now that I'm nearing the end of the list, I'm finding there are actually so many I could have included that I didn't, and I'm questioning all my choices, but at least I got this one. Hopefully we get a part 2, that's all I'm saying. I'm glad I didn't overlook Immortal Man though, and I decided to include him here at least. Immortal Man is the rival of one of the most famous immortal villains from DC Comics, Vandal Savage. In fact, Klarn Arg, as he is known, is actually from the same prehistoric era as Vandal in the New Earth continuity. Immortal Man isn't immortal in the same way as some other heroes listed here. Instead of having an immortal body and mind, he simply has an immortal spirit, being reincarnated each time his physical body perishes, allowing him to pursue and combat against Vandal Savage throughout the ages. Number 10, Yara Flor. Yara Flor is destined to become the new Wonder Woman. At least that is what Future State would have us believe. For now though, in the Prime Earth continuity, she is just coming into her own and being introduced to us as a hero, figuring out as well what that means for her as our Wonder Girl. Yara herself, like Wonder Woman before her, is also a demigod. In Future State we learned that while her mother was a mortal woman, her father was a Brazilian river god. Yara is an Amazonian in 2 ways, being from the Amazon and also being an Amazon of the Amazons. She is not from Themyscira like Diana, but instead from the Amazonian rainforest. We've seen the potential of Yara via her appearance in Future State, but currently she is not at her full power levels just yet, as she doesn't have the same amount of experience as her future self. Like Diana, she is also a skilled combatant and has enhanced strength and speed due to her heritage. Number 9. Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill isn't someone you'd initially think of when you think of Immortal, but he is down with the Immortals of Asgard, and so I think we can include him too. Also add in the fact that he is a cyborg, and you have a Beta Ray Bill that just won't quit, in most cases at least. In his Thor form, Beta Ray Bill becomes one of the toughest heroes around, not only known for his strength but also his durability. He is immune to disease and sickness and becomes pretty much immortal in that form. Being at the level of strength and capability when it comes to his power levels also makes him one of the most powerful heroes in the Marvel Universe, even though he might not be the one that you think of first. Still, I'm really happy I put Beta Ray Bill on this list because I feel like we never talk about him enough. Poor Bill. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, I have a lot more immortal, powerful heroes that I want to tell you about. So be sure to let us know you are loving it by giving this video a thumbs up. And shout out in the comments, be like part 2, part 2. Maybe we'll do a part 2. Number 8. Orion. Orion is one of the new gods and also the son of Darkseid. But just because his dad is one of the greatest villains of all time when it comes to the DC universe doesn't mean that he can't be a hero, which is ultimately what Orion is, preferring to fight on the side of good. Although this doesn't mean that he never has conflicts with other superheroes in the DC universe, because that does happen from time to time, with Orion arguing that his approach to heroism in certain cases is superior. Orion is an amazingly skilled fighter and leader who is known for his super strength, durability, and stamina. He also is immortal like his father, and because Darkseid has also been established as a constant in the DC universe, therefore invulnerable from ever being permanently defeated, we can discern that Orion likely has a similar thing going on, being descended from Darkseid as he is. Number 7. Icarus. I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention one Eternal on this list. Eternals are known for their immortality. I mean, it's kinda in the name. Eternal. We call them eternal because they are. They have lived on Earth for 1 million years at this point or more, Icarus included. They are beings who were created by the Celestials, but whose purpose remained a great mystery in the comics for a long time. Initially though, it seemed that the Celestials had created them to kind of be Earth's heroes, but also because they kind of enjoyed messing with species on other worlds, which was exactly what they were doing with humanity when they created both the Eternals and their initial sworn enemies, the Deviants. Icarus, like himself, is often thought of as being the Superman equivalent of the group. Icarus is well known for his durability, strength, flight, and energy manipulation and energy beams, including heat vision as a form of. Icarus is strong enough to take on Thanos one-on-one and also possesses the ability to heal himself. Like other Eternals, he also has the capability to teleport, though he actually prefers not to do that, and he possesses low-level psionic abilities that allow him to communicate telepathically, as well as more advanced telekinetic abilities. Number 6. Supergirl. Like her cousin Kal-El, Supergirl is often perceived as being basically immortal. In Future State, we saw an alternate future where Kara left Earth and lived well into the future. At the end of her Future State limited series, Kara Zor-El Superwoman, Supergirl did inevitably die, but we don't really know what from. It could have eventually been that she succumbed to old age after living well into the future and beyond, or it could be that she died protecting the Eternal Garden and community there that she created and had fostered. I would err on the side of the latter just because of how immortal Kara already seemed in that series. And that's not the only alternate reality where we've seen Kryptonians living well into the future, virtually untouched by age. There have been countless other realities, including that of DC 1 million, where we've seen heroes like Superman live well beyond normal years, becoming basically a sun-powered god. So if this is true for Clark based on his physiology, it must also be a possibility for Kara as well. Number 5. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is still a woman that can be killed, but she has also been known as a demigod in the comics before, with one origin for her making her the daughter of Hippolyta, the Queen of Amazons, and Zeus, a god of Olympus. Really, the god of Olympus. More recently, during the events of Dark Knight's death metal, Diana was also raised up to become an omnipotent god amidst the stars, transcended into an otherworldly being and leaving our earthly plane behind, at least for a while. Diana would get a glimpse into a potential future, giving us the Future State line, world, and event. Wonder Woman is known for being one of the fiercest and strongest fighters amongst the Amazons and in the world of DC besides. Number 4. Cersei. Probably one of the most powerful Eternals around, and definitely one of the few with the greatest staying power in the comics is Cersei. So she's not only immortal as an Eternal, but also immortal in terms of her appearance in the comics. Cersei is introduced to us as one of the members of the Eternals who most loves humanity in the MCU film Eternals, and the same can be said for her in the comics. There she is also known as one of the most sociable Eternals, who also appreciates a really good party. In fact, when she was tricked into believing she was human, this was kind of what her whole world centered around. She became like all about parties. When it comes to her power levels, Cersei is often seen as specializing in the power of transmutation. In the comics, this has never been restricted to non-organic matter either, and also gives Cersei the power to heal. As an Eternal, she not only possesses this power, but also has complete control over every molecule of her being, making her quite durable and quite hard to kill. Even when Eternals are killed as well, they're resurrected, meaning they can never really die. Not only that, but Cersei can fly, teleport, and has super strength, and is telepathic and telekinetic. She's really got a lot of powers. Like most Eternals. That is something that I feel like we didn't really see in the movie, but in the comics, they're all pretty OP. Number 3. Hulk. Hulk is definitely one of the most powerful heroes around in Marvel Comics. Often he is well known for his massive amount of strength and ability to smash or destroy just about anything he sets his mind to wrecking. Lately, however, we saw a deep dive into the character of the Hulk and Bruce Banner, who are also often described as being two separate beings kind of sharing one existence. In Immortal Hulk, we also learn not only that Hulk is extremely complex, but also that he's, well, you may have guessed it, immortal. Granted, this very revelation was something pulled from his original origin, where it was initially explained that at night the Hulk would basically take over, and because of this, whenever night fell, if Bruce Banner had been killed, then Hulk would be resurrected, bringing Bruce back with him. If you are a Hulk fan and you haven't yet read Immortal Hulk, by the way, it's definitely a must read, so go do that. And you'll see what I'm talking about with all this immortal stuff. If you didn't already know, because I feel like, you know, if you've been a Hulk fan for a long time, then you probably were like, I mean, it makes sense. Number 2. Jean Grey. Jean has died a lot, and I mean a lot, and yet she always comes back. If that isn't immortality, I do not know what is. Even when she has been dead for years, she still returns. A big part of what makes her so indestructible is how much the Phoenix Force loves her and often sees her as its preferred host. I guess except for the whole Phoenix tournament thing, that really threw my whole understanding of the Jean-Phoenix connection for a loop. As a superhero, Jean is one of the most powerful around, but often chooses to show restraint when it comes to her abilities unless she is really needed to set things right. She's just kinda too OP as well. She is an Omega level telepath and an extremely powerful telekinetic. Number 1. Superman. One of the most immortal of the immortals out there, and one of the most powerful, is Superman, who has been established as immortal as long as he's under a yellow sun. Granted, his immortality is a little bit conditional, but when it comes to being a powerhouse, Superman is undisputedly one of the best and most established in comics today. I mean, they kinda had to nail down his powers and give him weaknesses to make his struggles more grounded. That's how unstoppable he initially was. Back when his superpowers were basically whatever he needed them to be in order to save the day and solve problems. Superman has also died before, but has pretty much always come back, and following the death of Superman, we also learned that due to Kryptonian technology, even this publicized and sensationalized death would most definitely not be a permanent thing. A very powerful factor that Superman also possesses when it comes to his immortality is how popular he is, evidently. So it'd be really hard to kill Superman because we'd all be like, no! No one would accept it. We'd all be like, just tearing our hair out and beating our chest, be like, unacceptable.
In its end, Moon Knight. Mark Spector is better known as the vigilante Moon Knight. Once a mercenary, Mark Spector was left for dead in the desert, where he was revived by the moon god Khonshu. Appointed Khonshu's first and high priest, Moon Knight enacts justice to protect those who travel at night. Spectre also suffers from dissociative identity disorder, which has paved the way for his use of other identities, including millionaire Stephen Grant, and cab driver Jake Lockley. Since the early days, Mark has mostly worked alone, but he's also been a member of a few superhero teams, including the Avengers and Heroes for Hire. Recently, Mark discovered that he had a daughter named Beatrice with his longtime lover Marlene Arlone. But when Khonshu sensed Mephisto's plans for world domination, Mark left her to fight by his god's side and prevent that from coming true. When Khonshu succumbed to madness, however, Mark had to turn against him and help the Avengers defeat him. However, whenever Moon Knight would end up dying, Khonshu would just bring him back to life. So yeah, in essence, he's immortal. And at 9, elongated man. As his name suggests, the elongated man can stretch his limbs and body to superhuman lengths and sizes. There seems to be no limit to how far or wide he can stretch, but it's more difficult to control this ability the further he's actually stretched out. However, this also allows him to absorb bullets and then even just shoot them back by tightening his skin. He can also contort his body into various positions and sizes impossible for ordinary humans, such as being entirely flat so that he can slip under a door, or using his fingers to pick a conventional locks. He can also use it for a disguise by changing the shape of his face, although this is painful and difficult for him. But being able to stretch and move your body at will could also potentially allow you to stretch your life for longer than it should be. I mean, like, if his heart is giving out, theoretically, Ralph can just like force his heart to keep pumping by literally doing it himself, right? He can like shrink his heart and make it pump, right? So like it is partially possible, or at least there is a slight chance that he could be immortal, which is after all what this list is all about. It's might be immortal, right? And at 8, Ghost Rider. Jonathan Johnny Blaze, aka Ghost Rider, is an American motorcycle stunt performer and entertainer turned spirit of vengeance. He was the son of famed stuntman Barton Blaze, who tragically died during a stunt. He became bound to Zarthos and the spirit of vengeance after making a deal with the demon Mephisto to spare the life of his surrogate father, Crash Simpson. Now, with the power to control hellfire and to inflict pain on those deemed evil with his penance stare, Blaze seeks vengeance, riding his hell cycle as the Ghost Rider. But like, being the spirit of vengeance, being in debt to Mephisto kinda makes you pretty immortal in my book. Like, in human form, Johnny has no possession of any superhuman powers or supernatural capabilities, but as Ghost Rider, he's the supernatural combination between experienced motorcyclist and Zarthos. As the Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze possesses a variety of supernatural powers at his disposal. However, any weapon crafted from heaven or like blessed can mutilate the Ghost Rider, which is the only way to decapitate and kill a spirit of vengeance. So without that, he's immortal. And at 7, Supergirl. Last part, Josh talked about how Superman was basically unkillable ever since the Death of Superman comic event, since he hadn't really been killed by Doomsday and instead was placed in Kryptonian stasis until he was able to be healed enough to return to being a superhero. However, the same thing can be said about Supergirl, okay? Kara Zor-El, Kal-El's older cousin who got sucked through a wormhole, making her quite a bit younger than her cousin when she got to Earth. Despite this, okay, Kal and Kara have the same Kryptonian ancestry, making them equals. So if Superman is basically unkillable at this point, so is Supergirl. It's just basic math, or like weird comic book genetics math. Since he equals her, they would both be deemed unkillable or immortal. And I think that that's fairly cut and dry. Like, obviously they can be killed, but so can basically everyone on this list, okay? So let's just cut the semantics and just like ignore the nuance. I just said that to a YouTube comments section. Wonder how effective that's gonna be. And at 6, Spider-Man. First officially referenced in 2005's official handbook of the Marvel Universe, Alternate Universes 2005 number 1, the sliding time scales is an attempt to quantify the passage of time in Earth 616 so that the characters don't age noticeably. Earth 616 featuring a sliding time scale means that rather than being fixed to any date in history, the modern era, which starts with the events of Fantastic Four number 1 and continues to the present, continuously slides forward in time. This period is roughly 13 years, which means that at any time in the present, the space flight that gave birth to the Fantastic Four always happened around 13-14 years ago, meaning that basically everyone in the Marvel Universe can't die of old age. Meaning that while stories like Spider-Man Reign, among others, take place in a time where Spider-Man is old, his main 616 version is pretty damn immortal, especially because he's Marvel's most popular superhero, which means that this man has like a death grip on Marvel so hard that they cannot physically let him go. Halfway through into number 5, Wonder Woman. The Dark Knight's death metal story wrapped up early 2021 with issue number 7. And in that issue, and the issue before, we see Wonder Woman at her most powerful, in a godlike form that's even more powerful than a god. As the comic book puts it, quote, "She has been a god before, but at this moment, she's more. At this point, she has ascended past godhood and can see all of time and all realities. She sees every Earth's timeline, and she faces off against the Batman who laughs in his most powerful form. This fight is so intense that they literally hit each other through time itself. Diana here is also charged with anti-crisis energy, a connective force that links all history and all lives as one story. Then, she moves on to become one of the hands that creates the multiverse going forward, with no walls and greater possibilities. So she aids in creating the future state story, which we see in the next issues, and that was seemingly the centerpiece of DC 2021. So Wonder Woman becoming a god and remaking the universe, Sounds pretty immortal if you ask me. And at 4, Mr. Fantastic. In addition to the whole sliding timescale thing, which actually starts with him, making him immortal as well, Reed Richards' abilities also make him quite powerful. Mr. Fantastic possesses the ability to convert the mass of his entire body into a highly malleable state at will, which is what allows him to stretch. However, this also gives him the ability to absorb bullets and make himself more dense. Basically, all the reasons why Elongated Man would be immortal like I explained earlier. But the reason Reed has a leg up on Ralph is because of his son. Franklin Richards is one of, if not the most powerful being in the entire Marvel universe, even as an infant boy. This guy came to the present from the future and made Galactus his herald. Yeah, this dude made Galactus his and Mr. Fantastic's kid being somehow the most overpowered thing in the universe, there's no way that he would let his father die. If he wanted to, he could just like blink and his father would be resurrected. That's some Omega level shit. Like, he is like a Zeta level mutant, okay? It's insane. There's no way that this guy is dying. There's no way his dad is dying. I'll save Franklin Richards though for another list because I'm gonna need more numbers if there is one. Getting close to the end, in number 3, Batman. Batman is possibly immortal for the same reason that Spider-Man is, in a way. Well, at least like the whole popularity thing. Probably even more so because there is no way that they would kill off Batman in the main continuity. They may have other timelines or Earths where Batman dies, but never in the main continuity will they pull a move this big, okay? His plot armor is what makes him immortal. It doesn't matter if Batman has been a thing for over 80 years, he will always be young and immortal, at least in our world. And even if Bruce does die, someone takes over the Batman mantle, and people commonly see the one who takes over as the proper Batman, since the public doesn't know that Bruce being dead means that Batman is dead, but you know, whatever. Honestly, though, Batman would end up killing Death if the story needed it, and honestly, there would be no question in people's minds. They'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. In the comments of times Batman embarrassed his villains, everyone seems to agree with me that Batman's greatest power isn't his money or his courage, but instead the plot armor given to him because he's DC's biggest moneymaker. But ultimately, in at number 2, Sentry. Sentry is an absolute powerhouse, so it's no surprise that he's basically immortal, okay? Even like any threat this dude will take on. Sentry has even fought and beaten Ares, which is already impressive, but how he did it is even better. Sentry used to be a part of Norman Osborn's Avengers, who went to Asgard in an attempt to lay siege and claim it, because you know, it's Norman Osborn's Avengers. However, the Marvel version of the Greek god of war didn't like that idea, so after he learned of Osborn's intentions, he came down to kill the Green Goblin. But Ares did not anticipate the absolute powerhouse that is Sentry. Sentry's monster arms. He picked him up and tore him in half. Okay? Like, how the absolute living hell did this man tear a Greek god in half? He absolutely obliterated the god of war without breaking a sweat. And if that doesn't show you the sheer power of Sentry and how overpowered Marvel thinks that Superman is, then nothing will actually show you at this point. You're a lost cause. But yeah, I feel like that makes him immortal. And finally, in at number 1, The Flash. Technically speaking, the comic version of Barry Allen survived Crisis on Infinite Earths, despite everyone believing him to be dead, since he returned to the Speed Force after turning into the lightning bolt that gave him his powers to begin with. That's also an interesting story. But after transforming into pure lightning, traveling through time and space, and striking himself, Barry was sent back into the Speed Force, and later escapes and comes back into our world in the Flash Rebirth storyline. So technically, he survived the comic version of Crisis because he didn't die. Okay, he just transcended dimensions, which is a damn testament to how the Flash will never really die, okay? If he can have a very public and very impactful sacrifice to save literally all of reality and then just be brought back because he just went into the Speed Force like some sort of speedster Valhalla, it just makes me think that if any speedster dies, they'll just go into the Speed Force and then be able to be brought back. And in reality, every character is immortal if the writers want to bring them back for whatever reason. They will always find a way.
Coming in at number 10, we have Steve Rogers, aka Captain America. One of America's very first superheroes in the Marvel Universe during the Second World War, Steve Rogers is notorious for dodging certain death after surviving his plane crashing into the frozen Atlantic Ocean through suspended animation. Even since becoming a modern hero, however, Cap still can't seem to stay dead, with the occasion where he seemed to be assassinated by Crossbones actually resulting in his consciousness traveling through time. An inconvenient misadventure, but certainly less permanent than death. And given the fact that the super soldier serum also seems to at least drastically slow Steve's aging, and Captain America just might be more immortal than you'd think. Coming in at number 9, we have Alec Holland, aka the Swamp Thing. The being that now calls itself Alec Holland is in reality the Avatar of the Green, an immortal being dedicated to protecting all nature and plant life on planet Earth, that absorbed the memories and consciousness of a man named Alec Holland after a tragic chemical explosion in the swamps of Louisiana. As long as there exists some form of plant life on Earth, the Swamp Thing can regrow his body from this plant and transfer his consciousness, essentially ensuring that there'll always be an Avatar of the Green protecting Earth, and that the memory of Alec Holland will truly never ever die. Coming in at number 8, we have Jean Grey, aka the Dark Phoenix. An X-Men storyline and character turn so iconic that they've tried turning it into a movie on 2 separate occasions, Jean Grey has long been one of the ideal hosts of the Phoenix Force, a fiery power that's one of the oldest in the Marvel Universe. This incredible force is capable of healing any injury that Jean receives, and is even capable of resurrecting her entirely if she's killed by unnatural means. Combined with her natural mutant abilities already making her one of the most powerful telepaths in the entire Marvel Universe, potentially rivaling even those of Professor X, and Jean Grey will be one of the most important mutants for many, many ages to come. Coming in at number 7, we have Ben Grimm, aka The Thing. As the physically strongest member of the Fantastic Four with an intimidating appearance to boot, the Thing is respected throughout the Marvel world for always having his family's back, and even being capable of standing up to someone as powerful as the Hulk when the need arises. Ben's change into a being made out of a mysterious rock-like substance also had some unexpected side effects, however, such as the fact that while in Thing form, he never ages. This is offset slightly by the fact that Ben is capable of appearing human for 1 day a year due to the tinkering of the rest of the Fantastic Four, but aging only 1 day a year extends your lifespan dramatically, and combine that with all of the near-death situations or universal collapses that the Fantastic Four have avoided together, and Ben Grimm definitely earns the title of being practically immortal. Coming in at number 6, we have the Incredible Hulk, aka Bruce Banner. Considering the Hulk's most popular and critically acclaimed series of the last decade was literally called the Immortal Hulk, obviously the big green guy earns a spot on this list. Built around the twist that the Incredible Hulk has always been immortal and that Bruce Banner first died during the original Gamma Bomb explosion and has been constantly resurrecting ever since, this series took the Hulk into a wild new body horror direction. With all Gamma-powered beings apparently being connected to the One Below All in a way that allows them to circumvent even the natural process of death, the Hulk is apparently a problem that can never be permanently solved. Coming in at number 5, we have Kevin Connor, aka Starbrand. Taking his name from the literal star brand he possesses, Kevin is one of the most powerful heroes to ever be called an Avenger, gaining his powers during an Earth-wide cosmic flash known as the White Event. Gaining the ability to control and manipulate energy at a scale only limited by his imagination, Starbrand is incredibly physically powerful and capable of healing any wound on both himself or any of his allies. Starbrand is so powerful that he's one of the few beings to ever kill a Beyonder, destroying one of the multiversal beings when the Marvel Universe was collapsing in a massive explosion, yet somehow reappearing unharmed once the Marvel Universe was restored. And if you can heal from an explosion at the end of all existence, I think you might be able to survive pretty much anything. Coming in at number 4, we have Thor Odinson, the God of Thunder. While several Marvel and DC superheroes have godlike powers, Thor is one of the very few that counts as a literal god. Having protected both Midgard and Asgard for thousands upon thousands of years, Thor has already had eons worth of adventures by the time we were introduced to the character in the comics. And according to all the storylines that feature an older All-Father Thor, he'll continue to outlive the rest of the Avengers by thousands and thousands of years more. with even the Norse apocalypse of Ragnarok focusing on the concept of renewal and rebirth. Thor is a heroic god that will likely never truly see a permanent end. Coming in at number 3, we have the notoriously durable Wolverine. When Wolverine was first introduced in the comics, his healing ability was just a quirk that made him a more intimidating warrior. Any cuts or bruises would just quickly become a non-issue to him. But as time went on and Wolverine became a more popular character, his healing abilities as a mutant became one of his most defining features, even more so than his iconic claws. Wolverine's healing abilities, combined with his indestructible adamantium skeleton, have been shown to be so great over the years that he's even been able to withstand the full force of a nuclear bomb, and getting his entire body ripped in half by the Ultimate Hulk. Even in the few instances where someone has been able to officially kill Wolverine, he's somehow found his way back to the land of the living through time travel or magical means, ensuring that Wolverine will live on to fight another day. Coming in at number 2, we have the one and only Superman. Perhaps the most iconic superhero of all time, Superman is also where giant death of a hero events hit their peak, with the huge 90s cultural moment of the death of Superman. After a grueling multi-issue battle through the streets of Metropolis that saw Superman giving up his life to defeat the unstoppable killer Doomsday, it appeared that the Man of Steel was dead for good. However, after a long storyline that saw multiple imposter Supermen show up, Superman was shown to have not truly died, but merely been placed in Kryptonian stasis until he was able to be healed enough to resume being a superhero. Even after the beating of a lifetime from a complete monster, Superman remained unstoppable and has remained unkillable to this day. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the Venom symbiote. In a potential alternate future seen in the one-off story called Venom: The End, it was revealed that the most famous symbiote in the Marvel Universe has a longer shelf life than you'd expect. Keeping his host Eddie Brock alive for hundreds of years past a normal human lifespan, this story explores the symbiote finally letting go of its oldest friend and becoming the sole organic being left in a universe slowly dying to an artificial intelligence plague known as the God Mind. The symbiote wound up being the very last living thing before the universe was reset, showing that the most immortal creature in the Marvel Universe might just be a pile of black goo. No offense, Venom.
Number 10, the Spectre. Let's start off with a different type of immortality, one coming from a character who was never mortal to begin with. Kinda. The Spectre first appeared in More Fun Comics number 52 back in 1940. Now the Spectre, because of this, dates all the way back to the Golden Age. At first, the Spectre was Jim Corrigan, a man whose soul was denied entry into the afterlife by a being known as the Voice, and is instead sent back to fight evil. This, however, was after he was murdered. He would create a costume and call himself the Spectre. However, the version fans would become more familiar with, and who would become the more iconic, was the Silver Age version, which would tweak the Spectre to a spirit of vengeance, who would possess hosts and have them act as a vessel for delivering his brutal brand of justice. This way, you could still also have the Jim Corrigan backstory, but the Spectre could also possess other characters, like for example, Hal Jordan. He was the Spectre after he snapped and killed the entire Green Lantern Corps and Sinestro. But it's fine, it was parallax. I mean, you'd think a cosmic being would know that, but it doesn't matter, except the retcon, so no one has to feel bad. The Spectre has waned in popularity in the modern era and isn't seen anywhere near as much as he used to be. Number 9, Franklin Richards. The son of Reed Richards and Sue Storm Richards of the Fantastic Four. Franklin possesses a terrifying Omega-level power set that has only grown over the years. Franklin first appeared in Fantastic Four Annual number 6 back in 1968 and only just became a teenager. Happy birthday. Now, Franklin's immortality is implied because, well, you'd have to jump through some hoops to explain it via his power set. But he has been placed on the same level as the Celestials and depicted as one of the last beings alive at the end of the universe, just chilling with Galactus. The Cosmic Set have already taken notice of Franklin because he can essentially do anything. Because of this, he is a very desired player on all sides because he's also so dangerous. Hence why in canon at the time of this recording, the Mutant Separatist movement wants him on their side and not allied with his human meta-powered parents, or mutate-powered. He has been shown in certain future timelines to be able to kill Celestials. So in short, Franklin Richards is one to sit up and take notice of. It almost makes his superhero named Powerhouse sound cool. Almost. Number 8, the Hulk. The Hulk is currently, at the time of this recording, in a comic called The Immortal Hulk. And it means what it says. The Hulk is immortal. And this isn't the only time he has been depicted as such. In the very depressing storyline The End, he was shown to be the last person on Earth, utterly alone after his counterpart Bruce Banner died. Hulk is loneliness there is. In the Immortal Hulk, Banner cannot die properly and instead is dragged back to life by the Hulk if his form is killed. The transformations in this comic are depicted as monstrous and Cronenberg-esque, and the punishment the Hulk can take is immense, such as having his whole body cut up and separated into jars. This is while his mind stays intact and he can just watch what's happening to him. There are some truly horrifying prospects attached to proper immortality. The run started off as a really solid horror and then kind of started diving into multiple personalities and a companion who wanted to be the Hulk because he was allowed to be angry. Remember when the Hulk was sent into space? How about his friends and allies and how they fear him and never really trust him? How about how he lives life, drifting from place to place? How he's a danger to people that love him? The right to be angry. Okay. In at number 7, the Phantom Stranger. This is another cosmic entity, and this one with no origin by design. Who is the Phantom Stranger? No one knows. The Phantom Stranger first debuted in Phantom Stranger #1, all the way back in 1952. Who is he? Well, he is a mysterious figure who just kinda shows up when he is needed. Sometimes, not all the time. He also has abilities that can do what is needed, most of the time. And of course, he is vague and cryptic, for sometimes not even he knows why he was drawn to an event. Because of how vague all of this was, not only has the Phantom Stranger been depicted very differently depending upon the writer, but he never really caught on too well. It's hard to get attached to a mystery person who shows up sometimes cuz. He did show up that one memorable issue though where Superman became a marine vampire. Never forget. Phantom Stranger, just cuz. Number 6, Hercules. Hercules plays a decently large role in the Marvel Universe. He debuted in Journey into Mystery Annual #1 back in 1965, but that's cuz his first appearance in Avengers Forever was later said to be that of an imposter. Hercules here is immortal because he is an Olympian god in this continuity, and thus gets all the perks. No being a doorman for him. Now, Hercules had a fake-out death fairly recently at the time of this recording, where it looked as though the universe he was fighting in had ceased to exist, been destroyed. However, Amadeus Cho was able to discover that he was in fact still alive. Hercules is a good friend and rival to Thor, you know, like an anime. Hercules has also sacrificed his powers only to have them mysteriously return. Why? Who knows? Phantom Stranger. I know, different companies. Although now there may be a reason. That's what retcons are for. Number 5, Iron Man. Going for a more unconventional form of immortality with Tony Stark. Now Tony is very frail, even by human standards. For a time he needed to be in his Iron Man suit just to survive. And despite all the enhancements he built into his suits, at one point fusing them to him permanently with nanites, he was still brutally killed by his friend Captain Marvel Carol Danvers. This was during Civil War II, and it was because he didn't want to arrest people before they did crimes. However, Tony did not die. No, he managed to AI himself, and then build a new body, which has led to an interesting arc in his 2018 run about AI rights. You know, like those Voyager episodes. So Tony can be immortal, since he has found a way to transfer his consciousness into a digitized format, and hence make himself downloadable into robot bodies. However, every now and again, he must contend with the idea of, is he real? Does he have a soul? Are we just supposed to pretend he's real, Tony, and forget Civil War II happened? Probably. Number 4, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is an interesting case because no matter the origin, there is always at least implications, if not the downright statement, that she is immortal. Be she made of clay or the daughter of Zeus. Indeed, for a time, all Amazons on Paradise Island, later renamed Themyscira, were said to be immortal. Diana is a goddess and a warrior, and a compassionate leader, walking an intriguing balance of kindness and pragmatism. That is hard for all writers to capture. And of course, she is a staple in some of those "it's a dystopian future, but Wonder Woman is still here" stories. This is part of why some fans love pairing her with Superman. As while it varies, he is definitely more long-lived than most mortals. Number 3, Thor. Thor is meant to be immortal as he is a god from Asgard, but Thor keeps dying. Now, he is meant to be extremely long-lived, but for all intents and purposes immortal. However, Thor has been killed on more than one occasion, most recently by Captain Marvel. Carol Danvers. Thor's deaths are unique as well, for they play on his mythological origins. So instead of just vanishing, he goes to Valhalla or other realms and can continue to have adventures there. So there is the idea that even if he's gone, he's not fully gone, and people know where to go get him. Number 2, the Sentry. The Sentry is immortal. Don't ask how, they explain it, but just let it be. He took a serum that places molecules a second or two ahead in time. This activated a photosynthetic Superman-style response, which allowed him to store energy and power himself. Immortal. No matter how it came about, the Sentry is immortal, and that is part of what makes him, or made him, so dangerous for a long time. At least in terms of the Sentry's existence, which only dates back to 2000. He was two entities, both the Sentry and the Void, who was a dark mirror to the Sentry. So if he existed forever, so too did the Void. It was part of why the Marvel Universe was made to forget about him, which was the crux of his retconned-in origin story. At the time of this recording, his two halves have fused, reconciled. Where does it have to go from there? We shall see. And in at number 1, Dr. Manhattan. John Osterman's whole life changed after the accident that transformed him into Dr. Manhattan. He was the Watchmen universe's only superpowered man, a being of pure energy who recreated himself outside of time and space, and changed everything. Dr. Manhattan has only grown more and more distant from people and the world, largely because he can exist outside of time, seeing all of it simultaneously. He is completely immortal and omnipotent. And of course, there was Doomsday Clock, which brought the Watchmen and DC universes into proper contact with each other, and which essentially concluded with there's gonna be more timelines and crises and a crossover. 100% worth a wait of 2 years. Not salty at all.
Sam Guthrie, aka Cannonball, has been both an X-Man and an Avenger, and due to his apparent status as an external, is believed to be immortal. His powers are based around the ability to generate thermochemical energy and release it from his skin, then using that energy to propel his body through the air at fantastic speeds, effectively making him, as his name states, a human cannonball. Compared to the rest of this list, he is definitely lacking in the variety of powers department, but really, any superhero with immortality is going to be an asset, and I'd be happy to have him in my corner. Number 9. Thor is only borderline immortal, since he can be killed by Ragnarok. That said, it's not permanent because of the cycle of rebirth, and it's also a comic and he's not Ben Parker, so Thor will always be back. At least, that's what it appears to be anyway. Regardless, Thor's powers are well known, especially given his prolific role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But let's take a quick look at those. Obviously, we have superhuman strength, speed, durability, and, as long as he's eating the golden apples, stay in his physical prime. And with Mjolnir, he possesses dimensional transportation, a form of flight, and weather manipulation, and that's more than enough for me to say he's worthy of being on this list. Number 8. I am gonna call this one potentially immortal, simply because while he can die, he's also been seen living 800 years in the future in the X-Force/Cable one-shot Messiah War, so seemingly, as long as no one kills Deadpool, he'll keep living. And given this character has, or should have been killed more times than I can count, killing him doesn't seem to be enough to stop him from coming back. So, I'm gonna go ahead and add him to this list. Number 7. Yep, Superman's immortal, at least as long as he isn't killed. Although, let's be real, that hasn't stopped him yet either. Action Comics 1000 depicted a story of Superman bidding farewell to the Earth, and more specifically, his parents, shortly before it would be consumed by the sun, confirming that Superman could not die of natural causes. But also, in a sweet moment, we witness Clark question life, even now that he's billions of years old. We see him question what it was all for and why he keeps coming back. We already know Superman is strong, but that goes without saying. But even with everything he's experienced over the length of his incredibly long life, we see that the true strength of Superman is in his considerate nature and the strength of his heart, even in the last moments of the Earth. Number 6. Artemis is actually a fairly new character, not to be confused with Artemis Croc. This, fully known as Artemis of Ban Amigdala, is an Amazon who left to recover the Bow of Ra, and became an ally of Red Hood and Bizarro in the process. Much like Wonder Woman, Artemis is immortal thanks to being a child of Hera, although she can be killed in battle. She basically has the same base set of powers that Wonder Woman possesses: superhuman strength, agility, stamina, durability. So if Wonder Woman can make the cut on this list, I'd say Artemis is definitely worthy. Speaking of which, number 5. While Wonder Woman has always been semi-immortal, as of her New 52 relaunch, she's actually been fully immortal. And considering she was impressively strong before that, adding the powers of superhuman speed, accelerated healing, and flight pretty much clinched her being on this list. Heck, she's even gained the powers of Ares, the god of war, so add that to her ever-growing list. And let's face it, with Gal Gadot being her new face, how can you not love her? Number 4. The Phantom Stranger is an interesting immortal, specifically in that he doesn't even seem to be killable. The guy has had his heart removed and still didn't die. His origins are as of yet unknown, but several stories have circulated, including that he's a fallen angel who chose no side between heaven and hell, and thus must walk the earth for all eternity. Another states that he is a citizen of another universe, who at the end of the previous universe passed over to the new universe. That's actually really interesting. This might be just me, but I've always loved fictionized biblical characters. Anyway, Phantom Stranger's powers include dimensional travel, Eldritch Blast, spectral sight, illusion casting, oneromancy, and reality manipulation, just to name a few. So this guy's kind of amazing, and his only real limitation is his inability to directly intervene with, well, anything. Which kind of makes him sound like, well, some might say, God. Number 3. Yep, Dr. Manhattan couldn't be missed on this list. He's insanely powerful, seemingly impossible to harm, and can restore his body when disintegrated and be just fine. He doesn't breathe, he doesn't eat, he doesn't sleep, and just to top it all off, he's immortal. He's basically one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe. As far as being a hero goes, however, he's always kind of toed the line. As far as Immortals go, he's similar to Phantom Stranger in that he seems to be disconnected from humanity and only intervenes when he feels it's necessary. So given his power levels and immortal status, and that god attitude, he's on the list. Number 2. Yeah, the fact that the Phoenix Force has ever been stopped is amazing to me. I mean, the Phoenix Force is an ancient cosmic entity that represents life that has not yet been born, and the forces of creation and destruction. It's immortal, and was born of the void between states of being. Its very birth just sounds like a god. In addition, it is the nexus of all psionic energy in all realities of the Omniverse, and is among the most feared beings in the entire universe, and is able to cut and regrow any part of the universe as well as destroy it entirely. And given the aliases it's had over the years, the World Destroyer, the end of all that is, the Big Bang, Chaos Bringer, and Ravager of Worlds, I think it's safe to say that this immortal cosmic entity's strength is pretty boundless. Now if they could just make a good movie about it. Number 1. I'm surprised I don't hear more about the Sentry. So, the Sentry was originally named Robert Reynolds, a middle-aged man who obtained his power from a special serum he took as a boy. The result was he obtained immeasurable power, but another being came to be known as the Void. The Void turned out to be Robert's other half, and as long as the other exists, the other can never die. They will always come back. And in the most recent volume of Sentry from 2018, the Void and Robert have finally merged together, becoming whole once again and possessing power greater than they ever had while separate, which was already pretty much off the charts. So who knows how powerful this guy is now. That said, an immortal being who can't be stopped by a team of Avengers, gotta give it to them. That is power.